The Sherpa Screening Room is a presentation of podcast picks with Jim the Podcast Sherpa. These are episodes featuring interviews with artists and creators from various fields. Coincidentally, when the Sherpa tries to be entertaining, afterwards, he gets abandoned in various fields.
This week's guest on the Sherpa Screening Room, author James Byron Huggins, is here to discuss the second book in his Hunter trilogy entitled Hunter's Moon, which is about the world's greatest tracker pitted against a modified beast in the Arctic. Somehow, I don't think the Sherpa is great with directions, especially since his favorite song is Do You Know the Way to San Jose, which he is constantly asking Google Maps.
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podcastia, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa Screening Room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpolution, and welcome to the Sherpa Screening Room. It is a side project of Podcast Picks with Jim the Podcast Sherpa, and that is me, Jim the Podcast Sherpa. That's my name. Why are you looking at your phone like that? It really is. I kid you not. But I am coming to you from Sherpa-lu Studios here in the Sherpa Chalet high atop Mount Podcastia, where I get to overlook the millions and millions of podcasts that are out there. But in these episodes, we get to talk to creators, all sorts of actors, singers, dancers, producers, directors, and writers. And I've got a writer today. His name is James Byron Huggins. Most people call him Byron. And he has a new book out, which is the second of a trilogy. And it is titled Hunter's Moon, Hunter being the title of the first book. And the third book is actually already written, so that should probably be out in a matter of time as well. Byron lives down in Tennessee, and he says he doesn't really do a lot of interviews, but he's been in a lot of interviews. So he kept me on my toes, that's for sure. He was very kind to download the Zoom app for me, and I guess he really wasn't used to using this type of technology. So we know how technology can sometimes be a boon and how sometimes it can be a bust. So we had some technical difficulties, some audio issues. You might hear a little bit of static every once in a while when Byron is speaking, but I tried to minimize that. And I was able to really capture the best parts of the interview for this very show, for your ears only, and other people's ears too, not just you in the hat. Anyway, so yeah, we did that, and we got it nice and clean. Hopefully I got it as clean as I could, so you will enjoy it. And he's a really interesting guy. I think you'll like what he has to say. He's led a fascinating life as well. And we talked about his life and really how it influenced the writing of the book Hunter. I'm going to give you a little spoiler here. The rights to Hunter has been picked up by a major Hollywood star. So you may actually be seeing some work featuring this book on a streaming service in the near future. But we will talk about that in the interview as well. I believe this is the first time that I've actually spoken to an author whose work was purchased by someone who wanted to make a production out of it. So without any further ado, let's head on down to the Sherpa Screening Room, and we will be reaching out to Tennessee to speak to James Byron Huggins. Hello there, Rebels. We are here in the Sherpa Screening Room. My guest today is an author of many books, and he's got a new one coming out. His name is James Byron Huggins. The book that is coming out is called Hunter's Moon. It is the second of the Hunter trilogy, and he's coming to us from the great state of Tennessee. And, well, he says he doesn't want to be a bad influence, but he's smoking, but we won't say what he's smoking or anything like that.
I appreciate that, Jim, for not saying it.
Okay, we can keep a secret, right, Byron?
Yeah, you and me in the world. Keep it between the three of us.
Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. I've been an admirer of yours ever since I saw you interviewed and checked up on you a little bit. You've got a really stellar reputation.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm hopefully that the police will believe that also one day.
Yeah, one day.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Well, you can use me for a reference.
Okay. So the new book is called Hunter's Moon. Now, this is interesting because because the Hunter trilogy, the book Hunter, was actually part of another trilogy, wasn't it? Freeze it up.
I'm not sure what the other trilogy would be. I thought the Hunter saga was pretty much unique to itself. I'm not aware of anyone else doing it.
Oh no,
Like it.
yeah, I remembered it being sold as a
Did I
3-pack
miss
of
somebody?
books. Was it sold with a?
Oh yes, it's Hunter. Then there's Hunter's Moon, and then the last one is Last Hunt.
Okay,
That's the third book in the trilogy, Last Hunt, and it comes out I think in October.
In October. Okay,
I've already written. It's already in their hands.
okay. No, I thought that the Hunter book initially, the first one was part of another trilogy. I had noticed on Amazon that there were 3 books, and that Hunter was one of them.
Oh, that was a package that Wild Blue released with just 3 of my best thrillers.
Oh, okay.
That were all standalone books.
So, how many books have you written so far, Byron?
Oh, I forget, 12 or 13.
12 or 13. And all along the same genre. You like a lot of sci-fi and thriller stuff, right?
All my books deal with one basic element, and that's the eternal battle between good and evil.
I like
And
that.
I just put them in different circumstances, but that's really the theme to all my books.
Okay. And before you started writing these novels, you were a journalist yourself, right?
I've been a journalist. I was a photojournalist, actually. I won a lot of awards for photography. Well, I think I won more awards for photography than I did for my writing.
Really?
But yeah, that was that lasted for about 5 years. I was a street cop in Huntsville, Alabama, fairly large town, for 5 years, and then detective for a little while. And then I sold my first book, and I retired from the department.
Did you ever write any true crime books? Given your experience.
No, I've never written a true crime book until recently.
Okay.
I wrote a book called Maggie Magdalene, which is a story of an ex-nun who is now a district attorney who has to solve a modern-day Jack the Ripper type death. So it has a lot of twists and stuff in it that really sets it apart.
So now, it's interesting because now with the Hunter book, now we know that it's got its own trilogy, and we can actually tell everybody right now that Sylvester Stallone is actually looking to buy the rights to create a movie with it, right?
No, he's already bought the rights to Hunter, the first one.
Okay.
And he doesn't want to make it a movie. He wants to make it a streaming series on like HBO or Paramount Plus, something like that.
Okay.
But now that he was going to take that Hunter, the first book, and make it into one whole season. Okay. But now that I've written in 2 and 3, he can take 2 and 3 and put them together with the first, and he can make 3 seasons of streaming on whatever format he, really prefers. I don't know. I don't have any idea what's most popular.
I had originally read that they were going to make the plot of Hunter like Rambo 5, and they were going to kind of make it a sci-fi version. But that kind of went out the window, right? Is he going to play Nathaniel Hunter now?
Originally, he was. That was 20 years ago when he first bought the property.
Okay.
But now he's got Tulsa King going. He's got other projects going. I think he wants to produce and maybe direct some of it, but I'm not sure that he wants to star in it because he's physically busy doing so many other things. Like Tulsa King, he talked about how tearing that is on him, how tiring, how it wears him down a lot worse than a movie. Doing a series, getting up every day, working every day, 12, 14 hours a day.
Sure.
He said that was more grueling than any movie. But he's tied in, I believe, to a 3rd season of Tulsa King. And plus that he's got a lot of other projects that he's doing. But he's been trying to get Hunter made for a long time. He just hasn't had the right coalition of factors to do it.
No, as I said, you think that he's pretty much got all his ducks in a row to create this very soon?
I think he's got them in a row to produce.
Okay.
But I don't think he's got it in him right now, time-wise, to star in it.
Right. I know sometimes with authors, when they're writing a book, they may have like an actor in mind to portray a character. Did you have a specific actor in mind to play Nathaniel Hunter?
I had Stallone in mind. William Morris, big agency in New York, represented. They called me and said, be in New York on Friday and talk to Sylvester Stallone about your best idea for it. I had no idea at all. I hadn't been thinking about it. Anyway, they flew me to New York Thursday night. I met with Sylvester Stallone in his hotel room in Manhattan, of course, at a really nice hotel, by the way. I'd never been in anything that Baroque in my life. I mean, I was used to hotel sit. And I walked, and you can imagine what kind of culture shock I was looking at. I mean, people were wearing tuxedos. at lunch,
Right.
and I've never worn a tuxedo in my anyway. I went up to his room and I gave him, it was 3 paragraphs, double spaced on 1 page, and I gave it to Stallone. He takes it into another room and reads it, and he comes back and he says, I love this idea. I would tell you if I did. Okay. So he said, and then he said, so how does the rest of the movie play out? And listen, I had not put any thought into it more than 3 paragraphs, double spaced on 1 page.
Okay.
That's all I had. Okay. And so, but, this is like, when push comes to shove, you got to perform. I mean, that's all there was to it. So I stood up and I moved around the furniture in the room and I said, okay, this is how it play out. And I showed him, this is how Hunter moved. And see, I had a lot to draw on, and I drew on the thing I knew most about, which is survival in the wilderness and how to communicate with animals and how to move and how to set traps and how to do all this other things. And the rest of my literary mind brought in all the characters that, I recommended for the novel. And so I would play the part of the character, and then I would play this part of this character. Then I would show Hunter's entrance, how he does this, how he moves that way. And I did this for 2 hours, and Stallone just watched. And then he said, thank you, and didn't say another word. And I didn't know whether I completely messed it up, whether they were just sitting there, just like, what is wrong with him? Or whether I'd actually nailed it. Okay. I really didn't know. I mean, I left that hotel and I was just like tore up. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? This is the end of my career. They fly me all the way up here to give him what I could come up with in 24 hours. And I give it to him. And then they asked me, he wasn't alone in the room. He had his agent, and somebody else. And so I had like an audience. And anyway, I played this whole movie out. I just made it up on the spot. And afterward, he just said, thank you. And I left. Like I said, I bought myself an ice cream on the way back to the hotel. I was so depressed. I just didn't want to be alone. Anyway, I got back, flew home the next day, Saturday. I got home, and then Robert Gottlieb from William Morris, who was the vice president of William Morris, called me. He says, we got a deal. And I was just sitting there in my office, and I said, what? He said, we have a deal. I said, on what? He said, on what you presented to Sylvester Stallone in New York. And I just couldn't hardly believe it. I said, really? And he said, Byron, you think I'm calling you just to make this mess up? And I said, okay, well, what's the deal? He said, you presented 1 page, double space, to Sylvester Stallone. And within 24 hours, you have a $1.25 million contract with Universal. He said, that is the biggest theatrical deal in the history of Hollywood.
Wow. How do you feel when something like that hits you?
I opened the beer myself,
Not even champagne?
No, I'm a beer kind of guy. No, I'm not fancy. I'm not fancy like you.
So for the benefit of the listeners, could you kind of let everybody know what the Hunter's stories are about?
Nathaniel Hunter is the best tracker in the world. And he doesn't claim that. It's what everyone else says. So the government comes to him and asks him to track down something in the Arctic Circle that's moving towards civilization. And it's a half-human beast based on the prehistoric Homo therium, which walked the earth 10,000 years ago. This thing, for lack of a better word, looks like a werewolf. Okay. You can look it up on Google it or whatever. Homo therium or Homo scimitar, Scimitar, for those of you who might not be any better at spelling than I am. But I would look up Homo therium first. And then if you don't find it there, look up Homo. Anyway, it's a subspecies of the saber-toothed tiger. So basically, this thing is half man, half saber-toothed tiger. Okay. It's a strange species. And Hunter has to track it down and kill it before it finishes everything in its path, before it reaches civilization. And it's basically the greatest tracker in the world going after the greatest killer in the world, in one of the greatest wilderness in the world. It's an epic struggle
Okay.
between man and beast.
And wasn't the beast designed by some like rogue military people? Isn't that part of the plot as well?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it without making it too complicated. But yeah,
Okay.
that worked. For listeners. I mean, it's a lot more. It's a novel, man. It's 400. It's 430 pages long. I mean, there's a lot more in it than that. But
Sure.
that's the Reader's Digest version right there. You nailed it.
And Hunter's Moon, this is like a second showdown of them, right?
No, the one in Hunter died. They created one of the lead scientists in the experiment uses it on himself in Hunter 2. And this is a different Homo scimitar. This is a second scimitar. He has to hunt it down through that moor and just think, shades of Hound of the Baskerville, that kind of thing. The whole family, the whole complications, the beast. But in the Hound of the Baskerville, it was just a dog. But in this novel, it is a genuine monster in league with somebody in the house.
Okay.
And it's all a question of who is it? What's he doing? What are they doing? It's like a half detective, half thriller novel.
Okay.
It's really kind of hard to describe, actually. Did you read the back cover copy for the book?
No, I don't think I saw that. I read some of the info on it, but I'm not sure if I saw the back cover.
Okay. Well, and on the back cover, they kind of do a better job than that explaining it. But he's haunted by his past. Hunter is haunted by his past because of his first fight with one of these creatures. And now he's pursued. I mean, he's afraid of it because he knows how tough it is and how brutal it is and how primordial and terrifying it is. So he's afraid of it. And so Hunter has to battle all that within himself as he tracks because he knows how this is going to end. He knows how the first battle ended with that Homo scimitar. And now he's got a second scimitar he has to deal with. And then the third book really ratchets it up. Nobody can guess how I designed Last Hunt, but it's a doozy. I'm from the South. I use words like doozy. Boy, that's a doozy right there.
You're quite allowed to.
We all come from our own parts. We all got our own language.
That's very true. That's very true.
I remember somebody came down. Oh, you're up north, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Somebody come down from your neck of the woods down here one time, and they stopped. And I was standing on the side of the road clearing out the grass, so wouldn't get in the road. And they stopped. They were from New York. And they said, "Where can we find Tankersley's Grocery?" I said, "Well, you turn around down yonder, and then you go up a way. You go up until you see where Old Man Stable's barn used to be, and you take a left right there. Then you go down just a little way, and Tankersley's going to be on your right." And this woman that was driving the car just stared at me, and she said, "What is a ways?" So then I had to break it down into half mile, 2 miles, to separate the distance. I thought, you never heard it's a ways, and she said, "No, what is a ways?" Like asking me whether you're talking like half a mile or 50 miles. I was like, man, people up north, they just don't get the Southern lingo real quick. They have to absorb it over a week or so, before.
Well, you know what? You've given me an idea. Maybe Google Maps need to update its language to speak Southern so people can understand it a little better. Like they can make a turn like, okay, make a left after you go a ways.
Southern. Man, that's a dangerous slope right there, because my cousin lives in another county down here. And I was sitting with him one day, and he said, "That's far." I said, "I wonder where Chattanooga is." He said, "That's far." I said, "How far?" He said, "No, that's far." I said, "Well, how far is it?" And he said, "No." And he pointed. He said, "There's a far." And I looked down the road, and somebody's barn was on fire. And I thought, I'm from the South. Even I didn't understand that. So, if you're going to speak Southern, man, you're going to have to be in fifth gear to get your grammar up because it changes county to county.
Apparently so.
You're going to have to get a master's degree in Southern to speak from one county to the other.
You know, maybe like they could put that on like the county limit signs and stuff like that, saying this term now means this term and this term means that term.
You are now speaking Morgan County Southern.
There you go.
A dictionary at the edge of every county. Yeah. No, get more don't mean get more of it here. Get more means get out of here.
Maybe when people cross a certain state, they should make like Southern translators available.
The Morgan-Dixon line. Oh, you forget the Morgan-Dixon line.
Okay.
That's where we draw it. Where is that anyway?
I have no idea.
I think it's just north of Tennessee. That's just my best guess.
Okay. So, but do you think that's a good idea though, to have like Southern translators and Northern translators?
Who's going to translate? What county are you going to pick them from?
Yeah, I guess they'd have to have that on the application of which counties they know and which counties they don't know.
Yeah, because depending on which county you may be speaking Greek to them, and you're speaking English.
That is true.
It's a trip down here. Language is just a trip down here, man. Do you go through that kind of thing up there?
Oh yeah.
Or does everybody pretty much speak the same way?
You know, even when you go through like different counties in like New York State,
Well,
there's a lot of different phrases.
I guess you guys just aren't as sophisticated as we are with language, are you? Because we invent all kinds of new words. Yeah, what?
Okay, I'm going to ask you this: like, what do you call like when you're making a large sandwich with a big piece of bread and you have a lot of different like cold cuts on it and stuff like that, like bologna and cheese and pepperoni and stuff? What do you call that sandwich? Do you have a name for that?
A big old sandwich.
A big old sandwich. Okay. See, because some people call it a hero. Some people call it a grinder, I've heard. You know, and it's all like the same thing. A hoagie is another one. And it's all the same thing.
Well, no, we just call it a big old sandwich.
Okay.
Because down here, okay, you're missing out on a real cultural experience. You have never been through Sunday luncheon after church. Pick what you want, First Baptist or First Methodist, when them old ladies bringing them old sandwiches that they don't know how to make anymore. Boy, howdy. You know, sometimes I used to go to church. I didn't care about the sermon. I just wanted to go to lunch because I knew they were going to be serving some fine victuals in there. I've lived in the wild my whole life.
Okay.
I mean, all I had was book and wilderness and track. I grew up on a reservation, you know, when I was real young.
Okay.
Cherokee, North Carolina. I grew up on the reservation, and then when I got older, you know, I lived right beside the reservation. But I always was a lover of books because it took me somewhere besides the reservation, somewhere outside the reservation.
Sure.
You can imagine on the reservation, there's nothing to do. You know, I mean, there's nobody, and you don't have any friends. So I made friends with all the animals, wolves, cougars, bears. I knew them all by name. I named all of them. You know, so I'd go into the woods every day and learn to track, play, and stuff like that. And coyotes too, you know, coyotes. They act different when they're alone than they do when 3 or 4 of them. You know, when there's 3 or 4 of them, they're kind of like mean. But when there's just one, he's just like a chihuahua. I mean, you just come right up to you. Or they did me, you know, because I grew up with, I known them all my life. And so I grew up in the wilderness outside Cherokee. That's how I learned how to be a tracker. They always used to ask, Sheriff always used to ask me when I was 12 years old. But these 2 hikers got lost out way up in there. And we can either call in 1,000 people to find them, or would you go find them? I'd say, just take me where you last saw them. And they would take me, and I'd go back up in there, and I'd track them down. I'd find them way up in the hills. They were lost bigger than, you know, anything you talk about. They were lost. I mean, they would have died back in there, you know? And I don't know what's wrong with city people, why they have to think they can leave the path, stay on the path. But these people went bush heading, looking for a lost cemetery. This is one of those things you pick up on TV that gets you killed. Okay, they went looking for this lost cemetery that they saw on TV. And I finally got to them, you know, and I found them. I said, what are y'all doing out here? They said, we're looking for this cemetery, but we're lost now. I said, you're about 6 or 7 miles from the road. And then in these hills, that's equal to about 20 miles in the city. So you guys need to follow me, and I'm going to take you back to the sheriff. They've got an ambulance waiting for you. And so I said, forget the cemetery. It doesn't exist. I know every inch of these mountains, and the cemetery is not here. That's just something you saw on TV. I mean, I said that to them when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And ever since then, they've asked me, I've saved hundreds of people lost in the wilderness. I mean, and they're almost always there, Jim, for the same reason. They saw something on TV and they wanted to find it.
So where can I was asking actually, where can people look if they want to find out more about your work?
I really have an aversion to advertising myself.
Okay.
I really don't like to do it. And actually, Jim, and you being the exclusion from the equation because you're really not in it. I don't like doing interviews, because I always ask you some really weird questions.
We're saving the weird stuff for later, Byron, but that's okay.
Hey, Jim, you got my personal number? Because I'd love for you to call me sometimes and talk about how things are going on my next book. You know what my next book is?
Is going to be the third part of the trilogy.
No, I've already written that.
Okay.
I've given it to Wild Blue right now. They're publishing it in October.
Okay. So what's your next book after that?
I'm going up to New Hampshire to the old ruins of St. Jeremiah's Lodge. Somebody tells me he's found them. Where those 600 people vanished back in 1940. Nice. They found me lots of investigation. And you know what they found at the end of it? They found all the bodies, yeah. But afterwards, they closed the file and listed it as top secret. And 600 people walked into the woods, just died. And nobody knows why. And what could create some kind of mindset among an Amish community?
That sounds like another wild one, Byron.
Yeah, well, I think it's still up there, whatever it is.
I guess we'll find out soon enough. Say his name is James Byron Huggins. The book is called Hunter's Moon. And of course, that's the second of the trilogy. And the third part is already written. And he's got another book that he's working on already. The man is very busy. And we'd just like to say thanks so much for coming on the show.
I think you were gracious. And let me tell you, anytime, anywhere you want an interview with me face to face on any set, you just call me. You got my number, don't you, Jim? Boy, you would drive me crazy back in my old days. But when you check, you tell me. You let me know. Okay? You know how to contact me.
All right, Byron. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Listen and subscribe on podcast apps everywhere. And we're on YouTube at Sherpa-lution. Sorry, no video. You're welcome.
Thanks so much for spending a little time and hanging out here and listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Also, a very special thanks to Byron for coming on the show. And as usual with any authors, we include the link to their book in our show notes, and you just got to click in there. And also, if you click in there, you'll find lots of information about the show that maybe you just didn't know about, like where our link page is or where our social is. Sherpa-lution, of course, on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. And you'll even get our website link and also how you can support our show for free by going to link.video. It's just like watching YouTube, but with this one, you will be supporting our show for free. Won't cost you a dime, and you'll hear the same exact wonderful show that you've been listening to all this time. How about that? And don't forget, on Saturday, we have Sherpa Selects, where we are bringing back some of my favorite interviews from the first 7 seasons, just so we can get them up there. We get a whole bunch of good ones up there just for you to listen to. So in the meantime, while we are barreling towards the season 14 finale, I say to you, Viva la Sherpa-lution!
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpa-lu Studios production. Viva la Sherpa-lution!